Well, after a great first episode, Runaways goes a bit back in time to show us a different side of the story.
Don't change the channel, don't touch that dial. We got it all on UHM. Take off your sneakers.
Hey guys, it's Remember Runaways, Season 1, Episode 2 Rewinds, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I really did enjoy the series from here overall. I thought it was definitely a very good start for the show, and this episode was definitely a bit different than what I was expecting. I was thinking that, we were going to pick up right where we left off in the first episode, and we did at first. But what most of this episode consisted of is actually delving more, now that we know who all the Runaways are, now it's time to flesh out the Pride. What's their deal? Why they signed up for this? What's really been going on all this time? And I did think this was definitely the right time to do that. Now that we know what's going on in the Runaways, now we can actually look at the Pride in a different way, and I did think it was well done. I will admit, I don't think this was as strong as the first episode, but I did think it was still a very solid one, so let's just get right into it. And we start off right where the last one left off for the most part, and this is one of my biggest flaws this episode, is that at first it seems like we are just going to pick up right where the last episode left off. We see, basically, after Molly committed the cardinal sin of leaving her flash on, the teens run up to their parents mid-sacrifice and attempting to escape the cold worship. They're almost trapped inside the secret door in Jeff Wilder's study, but Molly's super strength kicks just in, we see it kicks in just in time, and the parents don't see where the light was coming from, but Catherine and Jeff leave the ceremony to check on the children to make sure they didn't see, the murder, obviously. So Alex splits from the rest of the teens with a plan to cover their tracks, while the rest attempt to reason with what they just saw. Was it just a Giborium ceremony or a science experiment that they can't tell? But only Nico seems really convinced that what they saw is that their parents just straight up murdered a child, and that, yeah, that is exactly what's going on. Some of them are in denial that that's what's going on, but I like that Nico, she knows very well, and it makes sense why Nico would be the one. She's the one who suffered a tremendous loss, so she's a bit hardened in that way, and it's not as easy to, convince her of otherwise. She knows very well what's going on, and we don't know if that's actually what happened, if they actually killed Destiny or not, but suddenly the power goes out of the house, and I did think this was a really great way to start things off. I really did think this was really solid here. But like I said, what most of this episode consists of is what happens after the credits sequence, where we then rewind to earlier that day, but this time it's from a slightly different lens. We are now viewing it from how the parents and what they dealt with throughout the day. We see Alex goes to school, and Catherine and Jeff discuss how he's coping with Amy Monroe's death, and then they have to set up for the Pride meeting, with Jeff visibly disturbed at having to go through with another sacrifice. So this is something immediately I really took account of. Jeff is not someone who is completely heartless. He clearly is very conflicted, and that's very understandable. I mean, what the Pride's doing, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. We already do see that in this, in these first two episodes, and Jeff seems like he's kind of on the fence about it. So we then cut to the Stein house, where Chase and his mother Janet, they're discussing the household patriarch of the family, and Chase brings up how he really does love his mother, but his father, he just really isn't a fan of. He thinks he has really bad anger management skills, and while he has improved them, the only reason he doesn't physically attack his son anymore is because Chase can now whoop his ass. And again, not a huge fan of this character. Right now, he's just coming across as very one note to me, but I do like this whole arc that, his father's very hard on him while Janet is trying to maybe give him more the benefit of the doubt, and Janet's phone then rings. She tries to hide the caller. Chase jokingly responds that, he doesn't think Dad let her have friends before heading to school, and Jan then answers the phone, smiles, and says she can't wait to see them tonight, even with him there. So this is really interesting. It makes it seem like Janet is actually hiding something from Victor, which, we were kind of led to believe that these two were in the Pride together, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're being 100% honest with each other either, and I did think this was definitely interesting. So in the Stein basement lab, Victor's working on the pod that will be used to sacrifice Destiny lair that evening, though it opens and closes without issue, containing that bright light glowing light inside, and the power in the basement flickers in and out. He opens it to find the rat he's testing is still inside, and he growls at it and wonders why it's actually still there. So we then see Janet. She enters the basement, realizes her husband's having issues with his invention. He's also having really bad headaches. She tries to console her husband, but he simply chastises her for insisting that he may need help, and he clearly doesn't want any sort of vulnerability whatsoever, so he then tells her to kill the rat because apparently the bonds of marriage extends to killing animals, which I thought was really weird, honestly, but again, it's one of the many things that the Pride has to do. So at the all-white Cult of Light, the Gibborim church members who found Destiny warn Leslie that Destiny has gone missing. So basically, she doesn't know what's going on. They just know that she's gone missing. So we then see Frank Dean, who's actually meeting with his agent, because apparently Frank, it turns out, is an actor. So much so that a bunch of teenage girls have his poster. I mean, this guy is really big, and he's actually struggling, though. Like, at this point, he is a struggling actor, especially after his agent straight up fires him and tells him that acting is not really for him. And basically, he was like a teenage heartthrob who helped a huge swath of the female population discover the wonders of masturbation, and this agent in general was very creepy. Something about him just had a really creepy exterior, and he straight up fires Frank right there. But now Frank is tainted by the church that his wife runs, and his agent encourages him to take advantage of it, and Frank reveals that Leslie owns the whole thing, and the agent says the celebrity helped make the church a draw, planting to see that Frank deserves major compensation for his role. So basically, because of the fact that Frank is so beloved, and he's such a well-known actor, it's actually tainted the church in some way, and it helps the church in a sense, but also doesn't, and I did think, again, this was very interesting here. So Tina and Robert Monroe argue about Tina's actions driving Nico away, and Tina wants to seal off Amy's room to keep Nico from looting tights and breaking trophies, as Gus are willing to do, and I'm assuming this is like a normal thing for Nico. Like, she probably, pretty much on a daily basis, goes around breaking trophies and looting tights and things like that, but she takes the Staff of One, creates a barrier, trapping Robert inside, but after Robert's counsel, Tina relents and decides to use more practical methods of locking the doors, such as actual locks, and the Yorkers discuss how big of an asshole Victor is and how Tina doesn't appreciate gold brie cheese. Then they reveal that they're surveilling the dinosaur in their basement, referring to Old Lace as a cue, which, of course, we heard about this before. We don't know what the dinosaur is all about, but they're now storing him in their basement. We don't know what's going on there. But a group of guys with guns then show up to a Wilder construction site, a future school that's actually being built for Pride, and they stop the construction workers, telling the foreman to tell Jeffrey that Darius Davis says hello, and it's a really well done scene. We don't know what that's about, who Darius Davis is, but Jeff gets the phone call telling the construction crew not to call the cops and that he'll deal with it, and Catherine then tells her husband to get rid of Darius, warning what would happen if the Pride found out, and Jeffrey won't pay him off and he won't get back involved with his old crew, but he does have plans for his former friend. So Leslie then tracks Destiny at a bus stop, who wants to go back home because it turns out Destiny is actually a mother. Yeah, she has a little girl, and she thanks Leslie for the help she received at the church, saying she's ready to be a mom now, but Leslie then coaxes Destiny into staying, and this scene is a lot more messed up now that we know what happened to Destiny, but at the same time, we don't know if Destiny is actually dead. So she does give her the promise with moving up in the church and going ultra. So it's clear the church is very important to Destiny. This is something that she very much does care about and she holds dearly. But that does not seem like that's what they're doing. It doesn't seem like they're doing this for the church. There definitely is a more malicious intent in there that we don't know about. But Jeff then shows up at the construction site and is cordial with Darius at first. He brings a briefcase that they assume is full of money for the neighborhood tax, and Darius's goons take Jeffrey's phone while he takes the briefcase, but he knows it's not full of the $50,000 that he demanded, and he opens it to find a tablet instead showing a live feed of a house. Now, whose house this is, we don't know, but Jeff says if he's not mistaken, that's his Nana's house, commenting on her delectable spicy chicken cooking, and tells him that if he keeps messing with him, the chicken recipe is going to be all that's left of her, and he outright threatens the grandparents, and basically Wilder says that Darius only has what he has because of him, while Darius says the opposite. So this is really interesting. We don't know what's really going on between Darius and Jeffrey, but I'm definitely very intrigued by this story. Clearly these two are very much at odds. They probably have been working together for a while, and I did like the way this was set up here. So the goons get in their car where one tells Darius that their real plan went through, and they've successfully cloned the contents of Jeffrey's phone. So even though the Pride seem like they are the main sort of villains here, there's clearly a bigger enemy that they do not realize, and I really do love seeing that. I like that this isn't just, oh, our parents are evil. There is just a little bit more to it, and I really did enjoy seeing that here, and I thought that definitely was quite interesting. So Frank attempts to track down Leslie, who's praying in her office, really doesn't want to deal with the distractions of her aloof husband, and Frank lies about losing his agent and instead tells her he wants to focus on the Church of Gibborim, and he asks her to take him ultra, but Leslie just blows him off. She mentions going to the Pride meeting and he tries to tag along, but she tells Frank that he's not allowed for some reason. So we can see these two, once again, they seem like a perfect couple. They seem like there was really nothing wrong going on. Then we can see that's definitely not the case. They definitely have some significant struggles going on. I'm looking forward to seeing really where this does go. So we now cut to the evening at the Pride meeting where Leslie is passing around information about Destiny, their latest sacrifice, and Jeffrey seems visibly disturbed. Like, he really is not okay with this, we can see. He's hindering on maybe not doing this at all. So when Victor tries to pick on him, Jeffrey replies the girl is only 17, which is the same age as their children. So needless to say, this is a little bit messed up, even for them, who we've already seen has committed some, significant sacrifices before. But this is a completely different story, because when they're doing this, all he sees is his children. So Tina replies the chosen victims are always the same age, and Leslie comments that the kids they chose are on borrowed time, and that she gives them a great life before this moment, saying they're giving themselves up to a great cause. And Jeffrey says it's one they really know nothing about, but Robert says that they're not so different from them. And again, this is really interesting. The fact that Jeffrey is so conflicted, I really do like what we're getting with this character, that he really doesn't want to be involved with this. But Janet and Stacy intimidate that if the evening sacrifice goes as planned, then it will be their last one and they'll never have to do this again. So this will be the last meeting of the Pride, and the parents then descend the basement. They don their ceremonial red robes. They surround the pod from Victor's basement, and back at the church, the crusty skinned person on life support is in a pod of their own, which encloses. Leslie then retrieves Destiny, who seems pretty excited that she's about to die, but of course she doesn't realize that she's about to get murdered. She doesn't realize that going ultra is what that really is. She thinks it's something completely different. So again, this has a whole new meaning, knowing that she's going to die here. So Tina raises a sound barrier with Staff of One, while Victor comments on how badass his pod is and how it hasn't had any problems at all. And basically, Destiny doesn't recognize any of the Pride members from the church, setting off some alarm bells, and then Stacy forces her to drink from a golden goblet. The other members get her naked, and she's very afraid, asks to stop as they place her in the pod. But whatever Stacy forced her to drink has made her physically weak, so she really doesn't have a choice here. And when she asks what the pot is, Leslie assures her that it's the light, but then Destiny looks at Jeffrey, who ruins the whole vibe by saying he's sorry. Then these were all warning signs that Destiny is in trouble. So you can see that Jeffrey, again, he really is feeling a lot of sorrow here. He's just not really okay with this at all, and she starts pleading for her life. Other Pride members look directly at Jeffrey like he screwed up, as if strangers drugging weren't giveaways. They think that he definitely screwed up here. So Catherine coldly implores them to do it now. Leslie then sheds a tear. The pod closes. Victor remarks that she's gone, and then Molly's flash goes off. They all look up in confusion, but they don't see anyone at the entrance to the basement. And with with that, we then go back to the present where we see the parents are all looking up in confusion, but they don't see anyone at the entrance to the basement's secret entrance. So Jeffrey and Catherine then run to change their clothes. They check on the kids, see if they were responsible for the flash of lights. And we then see Alex. He flips the breakers on the house that goes back to meet up with his friends in the rec room. And he wants to cover their tracks, but making it seem like a circuit blew, covering for the flash. But now they have to look like they're actually hanging out for the first time in a year when the parents come to check on them. So Carolina has a plan, but there's just one problem. Molly, unfortunately, is passed out from exhaustion, which is a side effect from using her super strength powers. So just this I really liked. I like that even though they have these powers, there are some setbacks, and because of this, there are some serious repercussions, and that's something we haven't really seen in a lot of superhero shows, and I thought that was actually really cool here. So the Wilder parents enter the rec room. They're surprised to see the teens are just playing Twister, because remember, they have to just make it seem as less, as least suspicious as possible. They have to just make it seem like they were interacting. So they leave them and continue playing the game as Molly, and Molly just says they're getting freaky. So Catherine wonders if they saw anything, but Jeffrey thinks that they're in the clear. And the rest of the Pride members are also shocked to learn that all their children are hanging out. But the Wilds remarked how nice it was to see it. Jeffrey points out the breakers were flipped out and that Victor's pod causing power fluctuations could have been the problem. And Robert points out he's not sure how the pod would cause the power surge, considering it's not plugged into a wall, but Jeffrey assures them that the kids saw nothing. While the rest of the parents go to pick up their kids and leave, Victor stays behind to load up his pod, but now the kids are arguing over whether or not their parents actually killed that child, and Nico and Chase believe it's entirely possible, considering how their mom and dad respectively are actually shitty parents, but Gert, Carolina, and Alex don't want to believe that they're capable of that. There's no way they could do that. So they examine Molly's photo, which comes out as a bright, indecipherable blur. And at the church, Frank then checks Leslie's calendar, where he finds that she has a lot of appointments in her private meditation room, again, sensing the fact that she's hiding something. So in the Wilder secret basement, Victor hears some bang inside the pod. He opens it to see Destiny is actually still alive. She's scrambling to escape, pleading for release. He holds her arms down, tells her that she shouldn't be there. And in the Wilder's party room, all the kids and their parents, minus Frank and Victor, are pretending a murder didn't just occur in a secret cult room, acting like they're having a good time. So the kids then hug their parents that they haven't seen in a long time. They convene and declare they need to maintain the facade. So Gert mentions time travel as a possibility for the weird stuff that occurred, and basically, Alex and Nico then meet in a bathroom. She's avoiding her mother because she didn't want to go home, and she laments losing her sister. And now that Amy's gone, she doesn't want to be alone, so Alex promises her that she's not alone. I really did like this scene. I like Alex's reassurance here, and again, you can tell he just really wants to get all his friends back, and again, I really enjoyed that here. So the Menorses leave, and the Wilders are left alone. Jeffrey comments on a potential romance between Alex and Nico. Alex, obviously weirded out by his parents' murderous rage, just kind of wants to be alone at this point, so Frank then tries to break into the private meditation room, but a lame church receptionist stops him on the other side of the locked door. The crusty-skinned person on life support is squirming. Nico then spies on her mom, putting the staff of one away. Molly then climbs into bed with Gert, now wanting to be alone, asks her older sister to sing her a lullaby to help her sleep. So Gert's singing echoes throughout the home's vents, heard by old Lace, who perks up in the York's basement, and Alex then sends a group message to his friends, telling them all to meet up the next morning. And when Carolina gets the message, she then tries to text Destiny to ask if she's okay, and a text bubble pops up implying that Destiny is writing a reply. So yeah, Destiny is very much alive. We just don't really know where she's gonna go. So in his study, Jeffrey and Catherine discuss their actions that evening. Jeffrey feels bad and says the neighborhood and allies may have changed, but killing is still killing, and Catherine consoles him and beckons him to bed, but he notices something on the ground in front of the secret staircase to their basement lair, and that is Molly's hairpin decorated with. So, like I said, guys, I thought this was a really well done episode. I thought it made a lot of sense to get some context into the Pride. I especially want to talk about the ending, though, because it seems like the Runaways, for the most part, did a good job of covering their tracks, making it seem like they didn't see anything. But then that ending came, and especially now they've seen Molly's hairpin, that is definitely a bad situation for them. We don't really know what's going to happen there. But I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen with the Pride. And what I really loved about this episode is that it kind of humanized a lot of the members here, specifically Jeffrey. You can see that Jeffrey is someone who overall is very conflicted. He's someone who's been in the Pride for a long time, and he's committed a lot of sacrifices, but this one feels different. It was a 17-year-old, and he just didn't really feel like, you know, she should die and that they should commit this sacrifice to her. And he really, you can tell, wants to get out of the pride. And everyone's telling him that, you know, if this went well, then you could. But obviously, this was a huge failure, so he's now stuck in the pride. And you can tell that he really doesn't want to be there. And I don't know what's going on between him and that other character, but they clearly do have some beef as well. And I'm interested in seeing really what that's all about. And Jeffrey as a character, he is really the one that did intrigue me here. I thought his character really was the most interesting. The other character that I did really like in this episode is what we did see going on between Frank and Leslie. Leslie is clearly hiding something from Frank. We don't really know what that's all about, but there's clearly stuff that she's doing that he was not in the know about, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that all does play out. Unfortunately, other than that, though, most of these characters didn't really intrigue me all that much. We saw that some of these characters are very much hardened and that they're willing to commit these sacrifices and that, you know, it's all about the church or whatever, but we still don't know really what's going on here, especially when we saw Darius. I don't think that the pride is the main villain. I think there's definitely something more going on. Darius says, you know, the real plan went through. We don't know what that's all about, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on there. And also, why are all these Pride members keeping a dinosaur in the basement? What is that doing? What is that really all about? And what does that have to do with the main goal here? Which seems like it's all about repairing the church, and, you know, they're all very committed to that. So we don't really know what really is going on there either. I'm interested in seeing really what that is all about. So yeah, there definitely are some things that do intrigue me, but there were some characters here that I just didn't really care about. Like, I really didn't care about Chase's parents. I didn't really care about Carolina's parents. Well, Carolina's parents actually were the ones I cared about. Besides Jeffrey, I didn't really care about Nico and you know, Nico and Molly's parents. Just didn't really find them that is especially interesting. You know, so I will say, I did think that the things that were interesting were definitely very interesting. Chase still remains a character that I'm just not really all that into. He just seems like the tough guy, and I'm just not really feeling it with his character. So I will say, I did think this was a cool idea to dive deeper into the pride, but the problem with this episode for me is that it didn't really know what it wanted to be. The episode's called Rewind, but the beginning and the end of this episode, the way it's bookended, you know, it works as a third episode, you know, it works as, a episode that's following the previous one. So for me, I feel like this entire episode should have been standalone. It should have been focused only on the parents and how they join Pride and things like that, which I'm sure we're going to get more context to, but just for me, I feel like they could have done more with this episode, and they did kind of shortchange it a lot, but it helped that the acting was really good. It did help that a lot of the performances I thought were definitely very well done here, and the story in general I am very much intrigued by. I just didn't find this nearly as interesting as the first one. There still was some great stuff going on here that I really did enjoy, but just in general, I feel like they could have done a lot more this episode. But I did think, like I said, this was a very well done episode. It got us more into the Pride overall, and I am overall going to give this episode of Runaways, Season 1, Episode 2, Rewind, a B. So what guys doing this episode of Runaways. Most guys thought this episode overall, left your thoughts in it. I will definitely try to watch episode 3 very soon. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.